Hello everybody, how are you all today? I hope you're well. Okay, so this is a bit different, isn't it? Oh, I'm not usually here when I talk to you all. But this morning I woke up and I felt absolutely crud. I felt like, oh sorry, I'm getting comfy. I felt like I'd slept under a bag of spanners or something. So I think I'm coming down with something. I'm having a nice, quiet sofa day. I'm snuggled up on the sofa with my blanket. It's gone so cold suddenly. And even though it's really bright, my goodness, it's chilly. But I don't want to be turning the heating on. What a waste. So I'm just snuggled up with my blankie and I'm having a day writing letters, which is wonderful. But I'm also, says she, reaching for a piece of paper. I'm also responding to this little thing that's going around in the YouTube Allotment sort of community. This sort of question and answers and then tagging other allotment channels. So I was utterly delighted to be tagged by Cliff of Castle Hill Gardens. So he can't be one of my nominations because he's already done it. But yeah, I was delighted to just hear him mention me because I've got so much respect for him. I love watching his channel. There's just something incredibly down to earth, unpretentious. I feel like I'm in a safe pair of hands when I'm watching him. And you know, there's something about him, please don't take this the wrong way, Cliff, if you're watching, because I know we're not that much different in age, but there's something about him that reminds me of my granddad. That's so lovely. And he also reminds me a bit of Jeff Hamilton. And who of us doesn't love Jeff Hamilton? So thank you very much, Cliff. I also feel, I'm definitely feeling sniffly. I feel a little bit of a fraud as well because all of the people who've been answering these questions, this has been doing the rounds for a week or so now, they're all allotment channels, and I've never considered myself an allotment channel. I don't know quite what you'd call it, not self-sufficiency. You know, if I lived in the countryside, I'd be trying to live off-grid, it would be kind of more off-grid. It's more of a, well, it's a living without a wage channel, and obviously growing my own veg is part of that. So, like I say, I think I'm, there's a community of allotment YouTube channels like this, and I'm sort of orbiting somewhere around the outside, sort of dipping my toe into the allotment community every now and again. But anyway, let's start with the questions. Actually, let me have a slug of water. Sorry. This kind of bleh feeling. So the first question, very simply, why do you have an allotment? And the very simple answer is, because I don't have a garden. It's absolutely as straightforward as that. So I live in a city. To find a flat that comes with a garden, well, it would just be completely out of my reach financially. For example, let's say you could buy a one-bedroom flat without a garden for, say, £350,000. If you find a one-bedroom flat with a garden, you're suddenly looking at £400,000. You know, it's 10% or more is added on for the garden. So when I moved to this property 15 or so years ago, it was what I could afford. I couldn't afford a property with a garden, so the minute I moved here, I put my name down onto a waiting list, and then a few years ago, I got my allotment. Actually, there's something else about having an allotment, and that's being able to garden communally. So even though we all have our own space within the site, having an allotment does kind of give you instantly a whole kind of village worth of other people. So that's an absolute joy to me. I love it. The second question I'm sorry, this is going to be really, really annoying. I'm going to just be drinking away, but you know when you're feeling under the weather, top up with your fluids. Second question, why do I have a YouTube channel? It was sort of an obvious progression in a way for how this whole year started out. So I've not been a massive YouTube person involved with sort of like watching massive YouTube channels, anything like that. But over the previous 4 years, Sean, who a lot of you will know his channel, Diary of a UK Gardener. So for the last 4 years or so, I was a regular on that channel. You know, Sean would come over and film what I was up to on my plot, or, you know, when I built my new shed, would come over here and film me cooking. So I'd kind of got used to this concept of YouTube, of making films and sharing them publicly. And I really enjoyed it. And then at the beginning of this year, not 2018, well, at the beginning of my year of being off work, it seemed to make sense to me to start my own channel, because although I liked sharing my gardening with Sean's viewers, there was loads more that I wanted to share. I had a feeling it would be a really up and down year. I had a feeling that there'd be some quite tough times, but that actually sharing that might be useful, might help someone else. So I knew that it wasn't going to be just me filming in the garden, that there'd be all sorts of other stuff. How on earth do you manage without a wage? So it was going to include things like the cooking, obviously, because that's a huge way to save money, is to grow and cook all your own food. But all the little bits and bobs, and there's still more to come as and when I do things, but all sorts of, you know, bits of DIY or plumbing, all those things I can try and do myself in order to save money. And I knew that if I was doing those, it'd be fun to film them and share them, because then if I was getting it wrong, it would hopefully be a lesson to other people not to do what I was doing because it was wrong. Or, you know, if I managed something and got it right, then share it, and then hopefully that will help someone else to do it for themselves. And I really, 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 I'm getting excited now, I really, really wanted to share this, because I just want to kind of spread that word in a way that you don't have to have money to have a rich life. You really can have a most wonderful life with little to no money. And if I can do it, anyone can. So that's kind of why the YouTube channel started, so that I could tell you all that if I can do it, you can too. Simple, really. Convoluted answer, sorry. So, how long have I been growing is the next question. So in don't breathe and drink. In the garden that you all see me in, we're now going into 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So I'm going into my 6th year with it as it is. This is actually really my first proper garden. You know, as a child, I grew up with gardens, so my grandparents in particular, because they were self-sufficient. So I always kind of grew up around the concept of growing your own veg. So even though I've never had my own garden until later in life, it's something that's kind of always been there. For years, most of my adult life, especially when I was working as an actress, I was leading a very, very peripatetic existence, you know, living in digs, up and down the country, on tour. It's impossible to have a garden. So yeah, this is my first garden. And again, that's the message, isn't it? If I can do it, anyone can. Never an ounce of formal training, obviously. And I think it's just a case of, I give it a go. you know, I'm happy to ask advice. There are other people who garden on my site who've been doing it there for 20, 30 odd years. If I'm doing something completely new, I'll put my hand up and say, help, what am I doing? Tell me the best way to do this. I just experiment. So in many ways, I'm a beginner, but somehow I feel like I've always been doing it. If that makes sense. Doesn't make sense. I never make sense. Question number 4, what do you grow? Well, it's probably easy to say, what don't I grow? I don't grow sweet corn and I don't grow mange too, because I don't like either of them. Blech. There's not many veg I don't like, but those two. Blech. I don't grow fruit, I simply don't have the space, and fruit is, I do like fruit, but fruit is more of a treat rather than, you know, the backbone of a meal. So I had to make that decision pretty early on that if I wanted to feed myself, I had to focus on the veg. With things like blackberries, of course, I can pick them from the hedgerows and have a few, but yeah, pretty much everything. Loads of beans and legumes and pulses, because as a veggie they form, you know, a major part of my diet. All the usual salady things, potatoes, parsnips, carrots, all the different cabbages, kales. My mind's gone blank. A squash, of course, all my onions. So really a little bit of everything. And the final question, what is my favourite thing to grow? So I was thinking about this last night when I first got the questions from Cliff. I was thinking, crikey, that's hard. So I like to grow squash because I love all their shapes and sizes and colours, and I love the fact that their foliage covers them all, and you sort of have to go rummaging, and then you see one developing, and it's so exciting when you see your first little squash coming. And then as the autumn comes and the foliage starts to die back, suddenly these gems, these gorgeous great gems are appearing all over the garden as they're revealed by the foliage disappearing. So I love growing squash. There are 3 plants I love growing purely for how they look. The fact that they give me food is an added bonus, but I think these 3 things are always going to be in my garden now because I think they're beautiful plants, and that is bulb fennel with their gorgeous, great, frothy clouds of bright green. Love them. The chickpeas, oh, their foliage, these sort of gently arching stems with their leaves and their teeny tiny little delicate white flowers that the bees love. And if you stand near the chickpea bed at the height of summer, you just hear all those bees at work, so they're beautiful. And of course the flint corn for its crazy lushness. Absolutely loved that last year. And even before I'd got my harvest in and I found out how brilliant it was going to be for me as a snack in the way of popcorn and as flour from the milled corn, even before I knew that I wanted to grow it again because it was such a magnificent plant. And it's really nice to have a plant on the plot that gives height, because so much is sort of down low. It's gorgeous to have all those kind of pops of interest with variations in height and colour and things. So, yeah. Oh, but, digressing, my favourite, absolute favourite thing to grow, without doubt, it's tomatoes. I love growing my tomatoes. And I was thinking about it last night, thinking, why do I love it so much? And I think it's partly, it really, that scent memory reminds me so much of my grandparents. The smell of tomatoes alone just makes me feel safe and happy. Oh, and I think the other thing with tomatoes is they're very hands-on all through the season. So, you know, most of our plants, we put them in the soil and leave them alone till harvest time, and then go back at harvest time and collect the goodies. But with the tomatoes, they're sort of, I'm continually working with them, removing side trusses, tying them in, clipping the foliage back to, you know, keep good airflow, spraying their leaves with my little aspirin solution to sort of as a prevention against blight, watering, mulching. So yeah, pretty much from the moment I sow the seed until the moment I harvest the last tomato, they're the one vegetable in the garden which will get attention week in, week out, and sometimes they're getting attention on a daily basis. And I love it. I love spending time with them because it's all the jobs that I do with them are sort of quite quiet, repetitive, so I can lose myself in the task itself. The smell, just, you see, now I'm thinking, I want it to be summer because I want to be playing with my tomatoes, but it's not summer, it's stinky winter still. Now, at this stage, excuse me, I'm going to have to blow my nose, I'm sorry. At this stage, it says she through a snot rag, I'm supposed to be tagging 5 other, I think I'm supposed to be specifically tagging 5 other allotment YouTubers. But the fact is, I don't really watch many. I don't watch a huge amount of YouTube, full stop. I just find that I don't have time. And if I come back from the garden and it's a toss-up between watching another gardener on YouTube and watching a tennis match is going to win. There's a couple that I do watch, but they've already been nominated. So, for instance, Muddy Boots, our Nigel in the Midlands. Oh, I'm so sorry, that's really bad accent thing. But yeah, I like a bit of Muddy Boots. Tony at UK Here We Grow, but I think he's been nominated. I would have nominated Cliff at Castle Hill just for that, like I was saying earlier, for making me feel like I'm in a safe pair of hands. Yay! What I have enjoyed seeing in the last year, from the little bits and pieces that I do dip into, is we're starting to have a few more girls doing it. Yay! Because the world of allotmenteering has been so dominated by men for so long. So I would have mentioned Rachel at Colliery Gardens. She's fab, have a look, but I think Cliff nominated her too. You see, me and Cliff, great minds think alike, buddy. Yeah, she's been nominated, but go and have a look, Colliery Garden. So I will mention Jane of Jane's Allotment, but the channel, she doesn't go under Jane's Allotment. I wrote it down just to double check. It's actually, if you look up Jane Kelly, simple as that. So I do watch Jane. Jane makes me laugh. She's as mad as a bag of ears, daft as a broom, but I love her. And I think actually with most allotment YouTubers, I'm not watching for the gardening, I'm kind of watching for the person and the warmth of that person. So Jane, I absolutely love watching Jane. Her warmth comes through the screen. She gets as excited about her garden as I do. I love seeing other people as excited as me, because sometimes I feel like I must be a bit but she's excited too. Yeah, and she digresses loads. I identify with that too. She'll be chatting about something and then a butterfly will go past and she'll go, oh, butterfly, where was I? Jane, I love you to bits. I think she's one of the people I watch because she's the kind of person I can imagine in real life I would be best mates with, and if I plotted alongside her, I would love her as an allotment neighbour. But we'd have to be really strict with each other so that we didn't chat all day, because I think we'd talk the hind leg off each other. So yeah, check out Jane's Allotment. That's kind of it for my allotment tags, because what I do watch on YouTube, and I do think that it fits in, and it probably, what I watch on YouTube probably reflects the fact that I don't consider myself an allotment channel. I tend to watch stuff about off-grid living, sustainable living, green living, that sort of thing. So, oh God, I jotted down, I only subscribe to 4, but when you subscribe to one, you get the kind of, you know, the thing on the right-hand side, suggested other videos. I was looking at some this morning, and there's a load of complete wackadoodle cranks out there. But there are 2 that I really like. One is called Exploring Alternatives. They're a young couple, I think they're American, and their channel is a real mixture of, there's a lot of tiny house living, and the thing about tiny house living minimally, or with minimalist. Oh, my brain's gone doolals. But they're, sorry, excuse me. But they also, they spend time looking at zero waste, renewable energy. So it kind of bridges that sort of off-grid living and green living that I'm really interested in. Have a look, it's really, really eclectic, but that's Exploring Alternatives. Really like them. My other ones, I've got a great long list here. Oh, I know the one I'll tell you about. It's a channel called My Self-Reliance. See, it says it all in the title, doesn't it? He's a guy in, I think it's Ontario, in Canada, or he might be in British Columbia, I can't remember. Anyway, he's a guy kind of in the wilderness in Canada who has built his own log cabin, and I really like his videos because usually they're very quiet. Quite often there's very little speaking on them. He sometimes uses a bit of music, but it's really gentle. There are a lot of videos where the only sound you'll hear will be the crunch of his feet across the snow. Occasionally he calls to his dog. Listen, videos of dogs in, that's a winner in my book. So yeah, there's loads of that sort of thing out there, and I think there's definitely, there is a crossover with the whole allotment thing. Gosh, I'm waffling now, I'm sorry, I'll try and wrap myself up. You know, so much of allotmenting is about using our resources and using them well. We all love to go skip diving, or dumpster diving as you call it in North America, to find our free wood and reuse it. So that whole idea on allotments of reusing rubbish, of gardening organically and tending to our soil so that our soil can tend to us by giving us our plants, so much of that transfers and correlates directly with the channels I watch, which are about off-grid living, living with the least environmental impact as possible. These are things I'm really, really, really passionate about. So I'm sorry I'm not tagging allotment channels, but if you're even vaguely interested in any of that stuff, go and have a look. Have a look at Exploring Alternatives, and My Self-Reliance, because I think they're 2 absolutely cracking channels. And in the meantime, go over and have a look at Jane's allotment under Jane Kelly, and I think you will agree she is well worth a watch. Like I said, she's daft as a broom. I think she could do with a few more subscribers. I don't think her subscriber numbers reflect how fun and engaging and warm her videos are. So go and check her out and give her a thumbs up and give her your subscription. Yay! Ugh, I feel pooped. I feel absolutely rotten. Oh dear. So I'm going to wrap it up, because I'm sure I've waffled, which is something Jane does too. If you don't mind a bit of waffle, go and have a look at our Jane. But actually I think it's time for me to say cheerio. And once again, a massive thank you to Cliff from Castle Hill Gardens for the little shout out. It's really, really appreciated, because I'm just little old me, all on my own with my little tiny channel. So it feels really, I'm really honoured to feel that somebody who I massively respect has actually noticed that I'm making these little videos that I make. That's wonderful. Cheers, Cliff. For the rest of you, for now, I'll say cheerio. Go and have a little browse on your computer. Go and have a look at some of those off-grid living type channels too. You may end up getting as hooked as I am. But for now, I think I'm going to have a little lie down, and hopefully I'll see you all again soon. Hopefully in the next couple of days back in the garden. But until then, take care everyone.